Headed to SoFi Stadium? Ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express. Just $2 base fare for a round trip from Westfield, Culver City on weekend game days. We're hiring too. Learn more at culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500.
Good afternoon. We're getting right down to business here. We are doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons right after Guy Benson and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money. We're live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks moving lower again today for the second day in a row, coming down some more from the record highs achieved in the last week or so. Stocks pulling back as the markets took in the latest mixed signals from various Fed officials. Looks like the Fed is back in focus following the speech by Fed Chairman Jerome Powell last week when the Fed decided to cut rates by a quarter percentage point. He gave another big speech yesterday, and some other Fed officials chimed in today. The Dow coming in for a closing loss of 171 points, selling at 46,121. The S&P 500 down 19 at 6,638, and the NASDAQ down 76 at 22,498. The yield in the 10-year note at 4.15%. A little over a week ago, it was all the way down to 4.03%, and that impacted fixed-rate mortgage rates, which came down dramatically. Looks like they're set to tick higher. Debate over the possibility of lower interest rates. The big focus right now, comments from the Fed this week hinting at a growing disagreement on what path of policy should be taken on interest rates, given cracks shown in the labor market. The Fed chairman repeated in a speech he gave yesterday that the Fed would proceed cautiously on more rate cuts this year. He also left the door open to more easing. He also described stocks as fairly highly valued. Wall Street now focused on what we're going to be getting on Friday, the next reading on inflation, which we're told is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index. That'll be coming out on Friday. Today we got a new report from the Commerce Department showing that new home sales unexpectedly surged in August as mortgage rates began to ease in the last month or so, bringing more home buyers into the places where they're selling homes themselves off the sidelines and releasing pent-up demand. Affordability, however, and availability continues in this area. Some tech stocks in the spotlight again today, including some that we don't normally talk about. Alibaba stock suddenly jumping 8% as investors welcome that tech giant's pledge to increase its AI spending beyond its original $50 billion target. Of course, Alibaba, the Chinese tech giant. Tech investor Kathy Wood this week happened to have bought Alibaba stock for the first time in 4 years, and she had a good day today. Wood bought $8.2 million of Alibaba for the ARK FinTech Innovation ETF and another $8.1 million worth in the ARK Next Generation Internet ETF Fund. MU, Micron Technology, went into its latest earnings news with investors looking for maybe some clues on capacity and pricing in their chip space, but looks like MU stock pulled back today, down nearly $5 at $161.71, despite the company delivering next quarter guidance and gross margin forecasts that exceeded analyst expectations. Looks like Intel is back in the news and reportedly asking Apple for an investment. Yep, you heard me. And the two companies have discussed working together closely, according to a report today from Bloomberg. Citing unnamed people familiar with the situation, Intel and Apple are reportedly still in the early stages of talks, and it's possible no agreement comes out of it. We heard today from the San Francisco Fed Bank president, Dr. Mary Daly. She said she fully supports the decision by the Fed to cut its policy rate last week and expects further rate cuts ahead. We did see the market pull back yesterday after those comments from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell signaling the Fed would proceed cautiously on further rate cuts and suggested equities were fairly highly valued. Congress out of town this week. When lawmakers return on Monday, they'll be facing an immediate government funding deadline. That's now in focus in Washington. Also, the Social Security Administration is about to get a new commissioner. Taxes still an issue, especially in New York. They're nervous there with the city set to elect the self-described socialist as mayor. I'll discuss the very latest what's happening on the tax front and all that with Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, who will be joining us live later this hour. And a major legal battle now reportedly looming over ABC TV-owned Disney and two owners of large groups of TV stations, Nexstar and Sinclair, over the Jimmy Kimmel Show suspension and now reinstatement at the network following the fallout of his comments on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Our legal eagle, Royal Oaks, following those developments closely and what lessons are to be learned by Mr. and Mrs. Southern California at their jobs when it comes to expressing opinions at the workplace on politics and other matters. Royal Oaks set to join me live later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, gold, too, still near record highs, at or near record highs today. Joining me now, Gabriel Wisdom, Managing Director at American Money Management, based right here in Southern California, and also author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Frank. What a day it was. You know, the market has been, should say, market watchers have been warning of a big tech bubble for some time. And there have been warnings about recessions for the last couple of years. And now we've got a study from Bank of America that suggests that if you look at the 9 equity bubbles since 1900, the average rise from the start to the peak has been about 244%. Well, we've seen the big tech stocks rise about 225%. So we're close. And they currently trade at a price-earnings multiple that's near the highs seen in the prior 9 stock market bubbles since 1900. So all of a sudden, you get Chairman Powell talking about elevated stock prices. It does harken back to Greenspan's irrational exuberance speech in 1996. Now, from there, the market only went higher until the tech wreck of 2000. We may be early, we may be late, but there's a lot of dialogue here over government spending excesses, the bond market, interest rates going up in the open market, and stocks being very elevated. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, well, we got the right person on the line here on the air live with Gabriel Wisdom with American Money Management, author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Since the Fed is in focus, let me get your thoughts on what we heard last week from the Fed chairman and again yesterday, and when he made those comments about equity valuations being high, and now the Dr. Mary Daly, the Fed chair here out here on the West Coast at the San Francisco Fed, making her comments today. What do you think the next moves will be on interest rates, and how would you assess the latest signals from the Fed?
You know, Frank, according to what the Federal Open Market Committee calls the Summary of Economic Projections, the average view is that the neutral long-run interest rate at the bank level, the federal funds rate, is 3% currently, and right now the federal funds rate is at 4%, which, as Powell said, is restrictive. But by the end of this year, the Federal Open Market Committee expects the federal funds rate to be lowered to 3.6%, and then it goes down from there in 2025, the end of 2025, then 27, then 2028, all the way down to 3%. So the trend in interest rates may be lower, and they're citing, of course, the labor market, but there's an equal number of jobs and people willing to take them. That's far different than what we've seen in the past, where there was an excess of jobs and not enough workers. So things are changing, and I think the Powell and the FOMC are right to be paying attention to this.
All right, and we'll get a new reading on inflation on Friday, which we're told is the Fed's favorite gauge. Do you think there'll be any unpleasant surprises there? What are your thoughts about how tariffs are impacting inflation? So far, so good, it seems, based on the most recent readings. What about the inflation front?
Well, the data shows that there's record net foreign capital inflows into the United States the past 12 months. And we saw some $1.7 trillion come into the U.S. That includes net purchases of U.S. bonds and U.S. stocks. And I mean, that's usually very positive. And yet the dollar is down some 10.7% since the start of the year, which doesn't make sense. If all this money is coming into the United States, the dollar should be stronger. So that's weird. And at the same time, interest rates in the open market, as you cited, the 10-year Treasury yield has gone up. Rates have gone up while the Fed lowered rates by 0.25%. So it might have something to do with the government spending excesses and the bond market's reaction to that. Hopefully we don't shut the government down while we figure it out.
Right, a lot of moving parts here, including gold kissing record highs again this week. It cleared 3,800 this week. Right now it's just below that, 3,775 here at last check. Silver at the highest in 14 years, got up to around $45 an ounce, and platinum is above $1,500. What about the metals, and what are the metals telling us here today?
I think the metals are reacting to the geopolitical environment. That's certainly a major reason why central banks have been adding to their gold reserves. And, the reason I liked gold certainly a couple of years ago was it was trading, adjusted for inflation, it was trading at a very low price relative to where it traded in 1980, 45 years ago. But that's not the case now. Gold is in line with its inflation-adjusted value from 45 years ago. So is it going to go higher? It seems like gold's being driven by a desire to diversify reserves by China and other central banks. So that's what's going on there. With regard to silver, I mean, silver's just been too cheap for too long. The supply of silver keeps tightening and tightening. Global inventories are at historically low levels, and we need it for pretty much everything. And that goes for platinum. That goes for all the metals. I think they've been undervalued for too long, Frank.
All right, turning to the tech names here with Alibaba in the news today on this ARK ETF position that was taken, and the MU, which had its earnings news, pulling back nearly $5 at 161 and change. And of course, we saw NVIDIA hit a record high this week. It's now pulled back for the past couple of days, and the list goes on. What's catching your attention with this latest tech news here today?
Well, I've been thinking about the Chinese President Xi's remarks about an artificial intelligence made in China campaign, and China's DeepSeek, super fast, super cheap AI alternative really shocked the markets earlier this year, back in January. Now you have Alibaba teaming up with NVIDIA in another leap towards that made in China campaign. They want to speed up breakthroughs in robotics with this partnership. So Alibaba will be a big player in the physical AI tools, the chips and so forth that are needed for this. And they've put together a $50 billion plus plan to do it. Now, this thing's moving quickly.
All right, turning to the cryptos, you're paying attention to them these days, and the Bitcoin has pulled back from its record high in the last couple of months. Was up above 124,000 to right now 113,000, bouncing back somewhat here over the last 24 hours. It was down around 112 24 hours ago. Ethereum also had that pullback earlier this year, then a big rebound. It's pulled back again now, back to around 4,100, and the list goes on. What about the cryptos here and the ancillary equities? Anything you're doing there?
Frank, just about everything crypto seems to be working, which harkens to that concern that Bank of America cited with regard to a market bubble situation. The prices for anything crypto seem to go up without regard to fundamentals. Now, Ethereum does have strong fundamentals. They've taken the basics of the Bitcoin network, they've built upon them. It's benefited from the ability to conduct business over their blockchain. They've got you get additional income if you lend your cryptos, your Ethereum. I don't fully understand it all. You know more about it than I do, but I'm starting to pay more attention to it, in particular Ethereum, because that's got a practical use.
All right, and look at Tesla hitting a new high for the year today, bucking the trend the last couple of days, moving higher, up just about $17 today at 442 and change. Elon Musk firmly on top of the world's wealthiest list. He got challenged recently by Larry Ellison from Oracle, and that stock's been bouncing around, pulling back a bit today. But that big one-day pop had Larry Ellison at the top of the list there. What about these tech names?
Well, Oracle is a great company, and Larry Ellison is one of the most talented, visionaries in the field. He's been there for 4 decades now. But in terms of Tesla, I think the future really isn't about cars. That's what Elon Musk has been talking about lately. There are 3 pillars to his thesis. There's the Optimus humanoid robots, which will replace some labor. There's the autonomy of robo-taxis and AI-driven transportation. And then there's the energy component, which is solar and storage and a clean grid that's AI-enabled. So Tesla's come alive. You don't have to drive a Tesla to appreciate the innovations that he's making there, and the markets recognize it.
All right, and any specific places at this point, Gabriel Wisdom, where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Well, Frank, today with the rumor, and I think it's probably more than a rumor, that the Trump administration is looking to take a stake in a lithium operator called Lithium Americas, and the stock was up sharply on this news. And by the way, General Motors owns a 38% stake in the project with Lithium Americas. I'm looking at the recycling themes for batteries. I like Waste Management, WM, Republic Services, RSG. I mean, these are big, diversified companies. But I'm also looking at the smaller operators, not ready to buy them, and some are really in they're trouble. But there's one called American Battery Technology, symbol ABAT, that received a $144 million grant from the U.S. Department of Energy. They've got some revenue growth. Stock's under $5, which bothers me. But I think this recycling of rare earth is a very real trend.
Very interesting. Well, Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much. A lot going on here, so thanks for tackling all of this today, and we will get you on again as soon as possible. Gabriel Wisdom, Managing Director at American Money Management, based right here in Southern California, author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank.
And out we go to the freeways now, 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Another pullback on Wall Street today from the record highs we started the week with here. The Dow coming down 171 at the bell at 46,121. The S&P 500 down 19 at 6,638. And the NASDAQ down 76 points at 22,498. The yield in the 10-year note is back up there at 4.15%. We did hear from Fed officials again today. The head of the San Francisco Fed, Dr. Mary Daly, supported the rate cut last week. And Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's comments still echoing through the markets today, expressing that he thought equities were highly valued, and also left a question mark on the Fed's next move on interest rates. A lot riding now on the reading we'll be getting on Friday. The Fed's preferred inflation gauge will be released on Friday morning. The volatility index actually pulling back a bit today, down 3%. Gold still at or near record highs, up more than $7 now at $3,775.40 an ounce. Silver at $44.17, kissing 14-year highs this week. And platinum is above $1,500 at $1,507.70. Crude oil futures close to $65 a barrel now at $64.77. We see Alibaba shares moving up, getting a pop today, up nearly $14 higher at $176 and change. NVIDIA pulling back some more from its record high, down $1.46 at $176.97. Apple pulling back 2 and change to $252.31. And let's see, Oracle was down nearly $6 today at $308.46. And Micron Technology and its earnings news pulling back nearly $5 at $161 and change. Turning now to the cryptos here, we see Bitcoin at 113,500 or so now. Ethereum down 8 at 4,159. Doge at the moment at 24 cents. And now the latest news on 790 KABC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express. Just $2 base fare for a round trip from Westfield, Culver City on weekend game days. We're hiring too. Learn more at culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 U.S.-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/secure. Protect yourself now at aura.com/secure.
Bruin fans, fall is finally here. That means UCLA football is back in your life. Head out to the Rose Bowl to enjoy America's best tailgating and to make more unforgettable memories with the Bruins. Nico Iamaleava and the Bruins are ready to make an impact this year, and we need you cheering them at the Rose Bowl. Visit UCLABruins.com or call 310-UCLA-WIN to lock in your tickets today. 310-UCLA-WIN.
Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KABC. The Fed back in focus on Wall Street. Congress also will be facing a big decision on funding coming up when they get back into town next week. The Social Security Administration about to get a new commission. Of course, taxes always very much in focus. And joining us live now is Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, with a ringside seat in Washington to all of this. Grover, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Absolutely. Good to be with you.
Thank you very much, Grover. And first of all, what about the drama here now with this situation playing out on a possible government shutdown? Maybe you can set the stage and give us an update on the prospects for that possibility pretty soon.
Absolutely. The Democratic Party is led by Schumer, leader of the Senate, Democrat in New York City, New York State, and by the head of the House of Representatives for the Democrats, Democrat leader, also from New York City. So the Democratic Party is housed in New York City, and now they're about to elect a socialist who wants to take the income tax up to about 55%. He wants to increase the city tax on top of the Medicare tax, on top of the income tax, on top of the state income tax, and the city and the federal income tax of about 55%. So you're looking at a party that's run out of a city that's faltering, that is leading the state in people leaving the nation of people leaving the state, and using a lot of U-Haulets to do it. And the new position is, the mayor says, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask people to pay more in taxes. Really? He's going to ask, and then if you say no, he'll go away? Or what does he mean by ask? So what are they doing now at the national level? Schumer, who 6 months ago said to his party, which wanted to shut the government down and not have a continuing resolution because they were so mad at Trump and they wanted to make some useless gesture that would make them feel good. He said, are you kidding? You'd be giving Trump the ability to decide what priorities he pays, right? Because if there's no budget, there's nobody in charge of this. This is a huge, huge problem. And he told them, knock this off. And so they said, okay, we're not going to do it for 6 months. Now they're back. And the left, our friends on the Democratic Party, are so enraged that even though the same thing is true, that they will be shutting the government down, they will be handing over to the Republicans and to Trump complete control over how to spend the money. He's decided he has to do it now because he's so scared of the left wing of his party coming up. AOL, the woman and congressman from the state of New York, she might want to run for Senate or for president. And he has to follow the more radical people in his party. So he knows better than this. He knows this is not good for the Democratic Party. He knows it's not good for the country. And he's out there telling the President of the United States, my demand is I want $1.2 trillion, $1.5 trillion more in spending. I want people who refuse to work to still get Medicaid, well, not Medicare, Medicaid. And this is his demand going into Trump. And so Trump told him, I'm not going to sit down with you because we're not going to, the taxes and the spending that Schumer wants to continue was spending that ends because the Democrats agreed years ago that it should end. This is spending for COVID, by the way. This is spending for COVID. They want to build $1.5 trillion supposedly on COVID. COVID was a while ago. That was the excuse then, and it's the same program they want to continue going.
On there live with Grover Norquist. I want to talk more about what's going on in New York, but impacting us here in California, the possibility of a government shutdown if Congress doesn't act before Wednesday, October 1st, a week from today. There will be a government shutdown. Do you think there will be a government shutdown?
I do, because Schumer says there will be. Schumer says he intends to shut the government down. He had been saying he didn't want to do it. Now he says he does want to do it. And the Democrats want to show the most left-wing part of their base that they're trying hard. They're doing something. And it's not something useful, but it is something. So remember, the Republicans in the past have had this happen, where the more conservative Republicans were so mad at Clinton, so mad at Obama, that they would say, we want to shut the government down. And after a month or so of that, they said, why are we doing this? And that ended it.
All right, getting back to New York and this mayor's race that's getting attention really around the world, and I've seen some interesting write-ups that one opined that the best thing that could happen in New York is to elect this guy and learn a very, very hard lesson in economics and socialism and communism and let it play out. But obviously, people are very nervous there, not only about taxes but other government policies. So, do you think this guy is going to get elected there in New York?
Well, it certainly looks like he will be elected. The other alternatives are fading. Most of the other establishment Democrats have endorsed the guy who says he is a socialist and wants to have the government run grocery stores. Can you imagine that? The government's going to run grocery stores. They run at a margin of 1 to 1.5%. The government's going to be able to, get by and make that work. The idea that and these people he says won't leave if taxes go up. He hasn't been paying attention to the fact that people have been leaving for several decades. There are now more people in the financial markets in Texas than in New York. I think in Dallas, Austin, than in New York City. The industry that used to distinguish New York is leaving New York. The high-paying jobs, serious jobs in banking and investment and so on, with telecommunications, with computers, you don't need to all live in the same city, and you certainly don't have to live in New York. And so New York, which used to have the ability to say, we're going to take a lot of your money, and they said, okay, but it's still worthwhile for me to be in New York because all the action is here and everybody else is here, so I have to be here and I'll pay the taxes to put up with it. That isn't true anymore to the extent that it was. New York can empty out, not of everybody, but of the people who pay the taxes that make all of the welfare spending possible. I'm not sure whether he has a plan B set up for every time. When well-to-do people, successful people leave, they also take all of their philanthropy with them. whatever support they were giving into the community, the museums and all that sort of stuff, not only because now they have a new place to live, but your lawyer tells you if you continue to make contributions to the groups in your old state, in your old city, that will be used by the IRS and the state tax authorities to prove you haven't really left the state, right? Your heart's still there. You're still there in substance somehow. And so people, when they leave, thanks to the aggressive tactics of state tax collectors, scaring them, and the advice lawyers give, which is cut all ties, they're taking everything with them. Yeah. Carnegie Mellon, which moved everything from Cleveland to Pittsburgh, all of those buildings are built in Pittsburgh, not Cleveland, because he moved all of his assets when he felt he was picked on by the Cleveland people.
Great that you know that history. And briefly, the Social Security Administration about to get a new commissioner. That agency has been under a lot of scrutiny since DOJ came into being. Anything we should know about the person that's about to, it appears, take over the Social Security Administration?
I know that they're taking it very seriously, and they want someone who will check and see whether we're mailing out checks or sending checks through the mail. Is that person alive? Is that person getting more than one check? Is that person a citizen? Did that person work in the United States? We do know every time they take a look that they get 15 to 20% fraud on things like Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid. These the government have been running for decades. I understand the first weeks or months or even years when you have one of those massive programs, you could get fooled a lot. But after all this time, they haven't gotten better. There's so much to be done. And DOJ sort of opened the door, but there's still a lot more to be fixed.
Grover, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon and all this, and look forward to speaking with you again very soon as we approach that October 1st deadline on a possible government shutdown. We'll keep an open line to you. That is Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.
Hey, Bruin fans, want to go behind the scenes with your favorite teams and athletes? How about getting exclusive merch and opportunities to enter sweepstakes like sideline access at the Rose Bowl? Introducing Blue and Gold Society, UCLA Athletics fan membership program created to support Bruin student athletes. Members receive benefits like exclusive gear, videos featuring insider stories, and incredible experiences courtesy of UCLA Athletics. Sign up today at blueandgoldsociety.com.
Ever wonder how dark the world can really get?
Well, we dive into the twisted, the terrifying, and the true stories behind some of the world's most chilling crimes.
Hi, I'm Ben.
And I'm Nicole.
Together, we host Wicked and Grim, a true crime podcast that unpacks real-life horrors one case at a time.
With deep research, dark storytelling, and the occasional drink to take the edge off,
we're here to explore the wicked
and reveal the grim. We are Wicked and Grim.
Follow and listen on your favorite podcast platform.
Mottek On Money continues, 790 KBC. A major legal battle reported to be brewing over Disney, the owner of ABC Television Network, and the two owners of large groups of TV stations, Nexstar and Sinclair, over the Jimmy Kimmel Show suspension and now reinstatement at the network following the fallout of his comments on the assassination of Charlie Kirk last week. Our legal eagle, Royal Oaks, is following these developments very, very closely. Looks like Nexstar Media Group said today it's continuing to evaluate whether it'll bring Jimmy Kimmel Live back to its ABC affiliate TV stations a day after the late-night show returned to the Disney-owned network. Sinclair is the other broadcasting group that has decided to not air the Jimmy Kimmel Show, and negotiations apparently with the network are continuing on that front. On Wall Street, we saw Disney stock Rebound today up $1.18 at $113.43. Sinclair pulled back 16 cents at $14.55. And Nexstar Media Group down nearly $3 at $1.99 and change. Joining us live now is the one and only Royal Oakes, our veteran legal analyst here at 790 KABC. Royal Oakes, thank you very much for taking the call here today.
Hey, my pleasure, big guy. And I got to say, a lot of interesting issues. You highlighted them. But, the purely legal issue, Frank, is the First Amendment only forbids Congress from interfering with free speech. A private company is free to say, hey, we don't like lies. Jimmy Kimmel lied about the man who shot Charlie Kirk. Our affiliates don't like lies. Our audience members don't like lies. It's a no-brainer. Jimmy, you're suspended. But he's back. Who knows exactly why? But the problem is, to the extent government coercion or threats or intimidation get involved, for example, the FCC chairman saying, well, we can do it the easy way or the hard way, to the extent Disney was intimidated into restricting free speech, well, now you're into a gray area. That's where Jimmy Kimmel and the folks who were critical of the decision could theoretically fight back, go to court. Of course, the fact that he's back on the air probably means there won't be any legal fights there, but it will be interesting to see if the FCC does approve big $6 billion merger for Nexstar, and Disney needs the FCC okay to buy the NFL network. So a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff happening.
On there live with the one and only Royal Oakes, Legal Eagle here at 790 KABC. And it should be noted that Kimmel's suspension last week came after Nexstar announced that it would not air his show. And then came the comments from the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, suggesting the ABC affiliate stations could be at risk of losing their broadcast licenses over Kimmel's comments. And we heard the comments or saw the comments tweeted today or X today by President Trump. So this drama continues here. From a legal standpoint, it looks like the network is locking horns with these two station groups. So what do you expect to happen there?
Yeah, well, it's going to get settled in front of the FCC. And of course, when you're talking about employment in general, Frank, in California, New York, most other states, they have an at-will employment deal, which means that you may fire somebody for any reason, as long as it's not illegal discrimination or retaliation for whistleblowing or something like that. And so, as you say, maybe the decision, the cake was baked to dump the show even before the FCC guy sort of piled on and said, well, something ought to happen here. It's going to be interesting. If there is litigation, we'll get depositions and subpoenas and find out what was on the minds of the various players in terms of how this drama actually played out.
So what lessons are to be learned by all of this? If somebody says something political at work, is that grounds for firing? If somebody doesn't like it there, what can we take away here about expressing your opinions at the workplace on politics or other matters, celebrities or whatever?
Yeah, great question. In general, employers are free to fire you if you start stirring the pot on the job about politics. If you're just obsessed with issues and, kind of bothering everybody, you may be fired, even though you say, well, it's free speech. I have political opinions. On the other hand, California and a bunch of other states say if you're at home or off the job, walking the picket line or something, you may not fire that person just because you, the boss, disapprove of their private politics. So, yeah, these big picture legal issues that affect the giants like Disney and Jimmy Kimmel also affect the regular folks, the rest of us. But I think ultimately the lesson, Frank, is just don't lie when you look into the camera and say, oh, yeah, this guy was a MAGA guy. I mean, it was absolutely false, and I think that's what got Jimmy Kimmel into so much trouble.
And no apologies, from what I understand. Let me ask you this: what about? Is there some sort of a provision that you're allowed to run for political office and not risk getting fired here in California or organizing unions? There are certain provisos. I'm sure you could tell us some more about that.
Yeah. So the deal is, as long as it isn't between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. on your job, you can do anything you want. You can support the Communist Party. You can be a union organizer. You can be a John Birch Society guy, and you can't punish them. California and other states protect your rights. But if it starts interfering with your job, then that's a different deal. You could be out on the street.
Right. We're hearing from Roseanne Barr chiming in on one of the stations today about what happened to her, about 7 years ago when she was fired and not reinstated, and the pot is being stirred there as well. I think we were probably on the air talking about that years ago.
Absolutely. She has been the source of a lot of debate, and it's interesting that she would be coming back. Frankly, for me, Frank, I just want to see her sing the national anthem at the Dodgers playoffs games again. That's all I'm asking.
Wait a minute. You want to see that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't get the image out of my head. It's like Julie Andrews and Lady Gaga rolled into one. Now, I could be wrong on this, but, that's my musical position.
Well, you are an excellent attorney and taking in all of these arguments, and it's certainly there's just a tremendously polarized view on this whole thing. Is it going to head to court, and are we going to get some definitive ruling on this anytime soon?
Unfortunately, I think the definitive rulings are never going to happen. I think it's going to get, a liberal panel of judges is going to go for Kimmel, and a conservative panel is going to go for the critics and so on. So, yeah, that's we're not going to get any definitive answers. It's just we're going to continue to have this debate. So different, as you know, Frank, in the Johnny Carson days, where we literally didn't know where Johnny stood politically. I think we know where Stephen Colbert stands politically.
Yeah, and those shows were funny back then. When comedy was funny, Johnny Carson was terrific. Royal, thank you very, very much for taking this on here today. We do appreciate it, and you're terrific. That is our veteran legal eagle, Royal Oakes, our longtime legal analyst here at 790 KABC, also with the podcast, the Too Many Lawyers podcast. Royal, it's always great to have you with us. Thank you very much for joining us live this afternoon.
You bet. Thank you.
Coming off a record high on Wall Street for the second day in a row. We started the week at a record high, and then the Fed chairman's comments kicked in. And again, today we heard from some more Fed heads. Right now, the Dow's down 2 days in a row now, down 171 here at the close at 46,121. The S&P 500 down 19 at 6,638. And the NASDAQ down 76 points at 22,498. And the yield on the 10-year note is all the way back up to 4.15%. It was at 4.03% before the Fed cut its short-term interest rate last week. The price of gold still hovering near record highs at $3,775 an ounce. Silver at $44.17, and platinum still hovering above $1,500 at $1,507. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz. I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow. Mottek on Money, 790 KBC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express. Just $2 base fare for a round trip from Westfield, Culver City on weekend game days. We're hiring too. Learn more at culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500.